So, I just finished playing Dreamfall The Longest Journey. The titles get a bit confusing, but I'll mention that again later. I enjoyed it, but it's a step up and a step to the side from the first game, The Longest Journey. It's a big departure from the genre that the Longest Journey was set in. Dreamfall The Longest Journey is not what I would call a point. It's not point and click. The world is 3D now, and you navigate not by clicking but by using the keyboard or a controller. Even though I couldn't quite get it to work, but I prefer playing with the keyboard and mouse anyways in this particular example. But it's a departure. It's a different game, same universe. The story is a direct continuation, although there's some time has passed, and you play as Zoe this time, a different character. But you do revisit some locations and you pick up the story, and I enjoyed that. It was very well done. Yeah, so as I said, the world is 3D, so the traversal is much more pleasant. I complained last time in the previous game about a lot of open spaces that you just travel to, like you maybe pick up one or two objects, and then you go through it again. That's more pleasant in this Dreamfall The Longest Journey game, the sequel. It's still there. There'll be a lot of running back and forth, but since the world is in 3D, it's more immersive. I feel, and it wasn't as bad. There are tons of loading screen to a ridiculous point, somewhat. But on a modern computer, they are barely there. So keep that in mind. That helps it. One of the things that are barely present is puzzles. There were a lot more puzzle coming with the point and click genre from the previous game. I wouldn't even call them puzzles in this game. A lot of the times the solution is in the same room that you're in with the problem, and characters are very outspoken about, oh, if only we could this, or you need this to proceed, you can go here to get it. Very rarely did I had any doubts about what I needed to do next, which can be pleasant, can put it somewhat close to walking simulator territory, that you don't have to think about it, but it's more of this cinematic action style that this game is going for. Unless, the few rare examples where there is a weird puzzle, like one thing I remember being a bit frustrated about is I had to use a spreadsheet to get to tie to a refrigerator or a heater to climb out a window. And the spreadsheet alone wasn't enough, so I was trying to combine the things. And the menu, the way you do this, is a bit clunky. So I was trying to combine it and make it work, and it didn't until I picked up a towel. Not a very long towel, mind you. So the towel and the bed sheet made for a long enough rope that I could climb down, and that was kind of like, ugh. But there are not a lot of those moments. But there were some where I looked up a guide, like there was a door with a code, and I have seen the code being pushed by an enemy you're trying to sneak in. I knew the code. There's also only 3 buttons, so you can pretty fast brute force. But unless you watch the code being pushed in from a very specific location in a very specific way, the game doesn't counter. Stuff like that. Maybe there were 3 or 4 times in the game through the whole game, but they weren't enjoyable. One thing to make so puzzles are a bit out. They're gone, more or less. So you don't have to use your brain. So then there's combat, where you also really don't have to use your brain. It's better if you can just push your enemy up in a corner. It's very clunky and slow. It wasn't reacting, but for the better. I wasn't really looking for combat experience, and I'm not gonna say they didn't put a lot of thoughts and work into it, but they might as well could have skipped it. There was one combat encounter that I kept failing, but I just kept on trying, and then I got it because there was really, as far as I could tell, no tactics. Like you get a light attack and a heavy attack, and you can block. But even if you block, you take damage. Um, so I don't know. That wasn't very fun to me. But since the story is a direct continuation, you get to revisit some locations. And now that it's in fully 3D, and you can turn the camera around, but not up, which was very annoying in some segments. There was like an underground labyrinth that I had to go through, and I had to watch out for an enemy guard, and I could barely see them because of how the camera worked. But the whole world is 3D, and it looks nice. Also, given its age, it still looks nice, and probably that's why there's a lot of loading zones. But it's really cool to revisit locations that are more fleshed out. That was very, very nice, and a good experience. There's a third game called Dreamfall Chapters, and I have it. I'm gonna play it, and I will need to because the story uh, is not completed or is not concluded. Maybe even less than, or I would say less than the longest journey. The longest journey was sort of concluded. Um, so keep that in mind. Um, but I am looking forward to playing it. So you just won't get a fully satisfied experience if that's what you're looking for. This game series so far, it has a thing for women in their underwear. I'm not complaining, I'm not shaming anything, I'm just noticing every time we start up, like we started with April Ryan, we start with Zoe, they're in their underwear. I don't know if it's what it's about, but it was a fun detail. I wonder if the third game will start like that. The, this game had some very cool cinematic moments with some new characters introduced. Um, so that was really, really good. The naming of the games, like The Longest Journey, Dreamfall The Longest Journey, and then Dreamfall Chapters. That is the order that they are supposed to be played. It's a bit weird, but I don't know. There's also been years in between the games, as in development, as far as I can tell. I mean, you can look it up. You can see that it took a lot of years. So kudos on the developers for sticking through it, and I'm playing this retroactively. I don't think there's another game coming up, but I guess I'll find out. So hoping it will end well, and the fans that I will now be a part of has a nice experience. But overall, I enjoyed it, even though it is very different from The Longest Journey, because I enjoyed the continuation of the story, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this takes me. Yeah. Thank you for watching.